The first type of tax you pay is what I call a visible tax. These are taxes that you can visibly see that you're paying. Here are a few examples. Number one is your federal income tax. You go to work and you get paid. If you get a salary, the first thing that you're gonna pay is your income taxes because it's gonna be taken directly out of your paycheck. Number two are your payroll taxes. These are your FICA taxes, your Social Security and Medicare taxes, which are also taken directly out of your paycheck. Then you have number three, your capital gains taxes. If you go and invest money in the stock market or in a real estate or you buy a business, and then a few years later, you sell your investment for a profit, you have to pay capital gains taxes on those profits. Number four are sales taxes. You got some money, now you want to go to the store and buy something nice for yourself. Well, you got to pay sales taxes on whatever you're buying. Number five is an estate tax, also known as a death tax. If you're very wealthy and you pass away and you're passing down your wealth to your kids or anybody, you're going to have to pay taxes. Now, this is not for everybody, this is more for the wealthy, but it is a tax that you have to pay if you're passing a lot of wealth down to the next generation. Number six are tariffs. I recently made a video explaining in depth how the tariff tax work in relative to everything else. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it for you down in the description. But tariffs are a tax put on foreign countries that the importer has to pay. So if you are a business that is buying products from China, well, you have to now pay a tax to bring those products from China into the United States. Seven is property tax. You go and buy a property for yourself to live in. Well, you can have to pay taxes every year on that property, which is a property tax. Number eight are corporate taxes. If you start a business, a corporation, and the corporation has a profit, well, before you get that money, you also have to pay a corporate tax on that money. Number nine are state and local taxes. Some states and some cities are going to have local taxes that you're going to have to pay. For example, California and New York have very high state taxes, and then I lumped everything else into number 10, which is the other section. This would be things like taxes on lottery, taxes on cigarettes, taxes on alcohol, and taxes on tolls. Everything else we'll just throw into here because then this list would get very long. So let me give you an example on how this visible tax actually plays out. This is you and you're making $100,000 a year. For my male followers, I drew a mustache, which in my native language Punjabi, we call a much. For my female followers, I drew a braid. In my native language Punjabi, we call that a gut. You're making $100,000 a year from your job, and the very first thing you gotta do is you gotta pay your income taxes. $13,800 in federal income taxes, but that does not include your payroll taxes because you gotta pay FICA. Another $7,650 in your payroll taxes, your FICA taxes. Again, this is before you even see your money. This is your Social Security and Medicare taxes, which, by the way, this is actually only half the taxes that you're paying because your employer, your boss, has to pay an additional $7,650, which means in theory, you're paying double this in FICA taxes because if you didn't have to pay that, your employer could give you more money. And then you have to pay your state and local taxes. So let's assume you're in a generally low tax state like Michigan, which means you're gonna have to pay an additional $4,000 in state taxes. You just paid over $25,000 in taxes before you actually had a penny hit your bank account, and now you're left with $74,550, and now you can finally start enjoying your money. So let's assume that you spend about $2,000 a month on stuff. That's on things like clothes and gifts and eating out and travel and all the stuff that you're buying. That's $24,000 a year on stuff. Well, you have to pay a 6% sales tax on that in Michigan. That's $1,440. Now, what if you made some good financial decisions and you bought a house? Well, now you got a nice place to live, but you also got to pay property taxes. Add in another $5,000 a year in property taxes. If you invested your money in the stock market and sold it for a profit, you have to pay capital gains taxes on that. Do you drink? Do you smoke? Do you play the lottery? Do you take any tolls? You have to pay excise taxes on that. So you're going to be paying more than $30,000 just in taxes, which is why in reality taxes are one of the largest expenses for Americans because, well, there's a lot of different taxes that you have to pay, and this is just what I call the visible tax. Then you have one more type of tax, and this is where I want to remind you that my team at Briefs Media publishes a free daily report called Market Briefs, where we break down what's happening in the financial markets. So if you're an investor and you want to know what's happening in the stock market, the housing market, crypto, global markets, or our own economy, it's a quick 5-minute read. It's read by hundreds of thousands of investors every morning, and when you join Market Briefs, you're also going to get my investing masterclass as a bonus, where I'll walk you through how you can get started as an investor and find hidden investment opportunities before anybody else. It's completely free, so if you want to get Market Briefs and my investing masterclass for free, all you have to do is click the link down in the description below. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to continue your financial education journey, I have another video that I think you'll love. All you got to do is click that button right over there. And for those of you who want to stay up to date on the top finance and business news, you can join Market Briefs, my free financial newsletter, by clicking that button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.